A lot happened this year, but what parts will we remember? How will 2014 go down in history? Let's begin with Ukraine, a country halfway between Europe and Russia. This story starts in November of 2013, when the Ukrainian president decided against forming closer ties with the European Union, preferring instead to ally more closely with Russia. Many were unhappy with this decision and started a revolution, which led to the impeachment of the president on February 22nd. This naturally upset Russia, who disliked the new pro-European government in Ukraine. Russia responded by annexing Crimea, a geographically isolated region of Ukraine with a higher concentration of Russian nationals. This move was countered by a number of economic sanctions against Russia. Russia, by the way, had just hosted the Sochi Winter Olympics, the most expensive Olympic Games in history. A ways to the south, Israel launched an invasion of the Gaza Strip in July. The Gaza Strip is a small piece of land bordering the Mediterranean Sea that, depending on who you ask, is either a part of Israel currently under the control of Palestine or a part of Palestine illegally occupied by Israel. After 7 weeks of conflict, more than 2,000 Palestinians and 71 Israelis were left dead, with no territory changing hands. At the same time, slightly to the east, a Sunni Islamic group invaded northwest Iraq. The name of this group is the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, abbreviated ISIS or ISIL or IS. Their goal is to create a unified Islamic nation across much of the Middle East. The group gained notoriety for its violent propaganda, including the beheading of several Westerners whose deaths were recorded on video and distributed to the world. The violence prompted the United States to begin a number of air raids in northern Iraq in August, causing concerns of involvement in another war in the region. In West Africa, an epidemic of the Ebola virus started in February and continued throughout the year. Officially, 20,000 people have died so far from the epidemic, but it's believed that this is a huge underestimate. In much happier news, the European Space Agency successfully landed a probe on a comet. Domestically, in the United States, it was a busy year as well. Most of the provisions of the Affordable Care Act came into effect at the beginning of the year. In May, the Obama administration announced that 20 million people had gained health insurance under the law. 20 states legalized gay marriage, bringing the total to 36. The year also saw continued economic growth, with unemployment reaching its lowest level since before the Great Recession. On August 9th, the 18-year-old Michael Brown was shot and killed by a police officer in Ferguson, Missouri. Michael Brown was black and unarmed, the officer was white, and the shooting sparked months of unrest and protests in Ferguson and across the country. The protests reached a tipping point in November when a grand jury failed to indict the officer. Similar events, like the death of Eric Gardner in New York City, added to the unrest and renewed a conversation about both race and the use of police force. In December, 2 New York City police officers were shot and killed, apparently in retaliation for the Brown and Gardner shootings. In November, the new building at One World Trade Center opened for the first time, built near the site of the 9/11 attacks. Later that same month, President Obama signed into law an executive order overhauling the nation's immigration system, extending citizenship to more than 4 million formerly illegal immigrants. 1 month later, Obama announced that relations between the U.S. and Cuba would be normalized for the first time in more than 50 years, when then-President John F. Kennedy brought an embargo against the island nation in light of Cold War tensions. Now, as you look towards the next year, it seems certain that 2014 will be remembered as a year when history was truly made.